Welcome to Wedges of 2026, guys. Let me tell you just how insane this season of Wedges has been for my career. It's been so insane. I have never seen so many wedges in my life in such a short period of time. I never saw it coming. So, without further ado, let's jump right into this stuff, shall we? Our first date, February 19th, an absolute surprise of a wedge. I was joined by none other than Tia Justice, director of ISC. Our journey begins in Vincennes, Indiana. After sitting near Vincennes waiting for the storms to mature, we grew tired of waiting and decided to get aggressive. We targeted a cell maturing near Chauncey, Illinois, that had unimpeded southerly inflow. After noticing a sudden increase in inflow on velocity, we knew what was coming. We picked a field and bared wedgy witness to the birth of the year's first wedge. The compact wall cloud churned, and before long, wedge time. This wedge was huge. As you can see in this video, the wedge was so freaking big that its width was literally warping inwards, making it look like a little noodle funnel. Lies. It was 5,000 miles wide, and it almost killed both of us. We tried to retreat, but the road network said, you dying today. You thought the wedges were done? Wrong. After that wedge recycled to the north, planted another wedge, and impacted Flat Rock, Illinois, the same supercell made us wedgy little way all the way back home to Bloomington. Once again, I didn't know if I was gonna have a home to come to. There's a wedge magnet painted on my back. I feel like I should get a magnet and put it on my car. We call it the wedge magnet. It's a bowl. All right, guys. Our next huge wedge comes at the date of March 10th. This will forever go down as one of the craziest wedges I've seen. SPC issues a moderate risk for northern Illinois near the Kankakee area, far northeastern Illinois. Warm front stalls, and then it's game on. I began just southwest of Kankakee, Illinois, monitoring a beefy chungus of a supercell. It was elevated at the time, with very large hail falling, but that would change as the evening progressed. The more I followed it, the more I realized just how many times it attempted to plant a wedge. It struggled to get its act together just before Kankakee. Notice the turquoise green mesocyclone churning above the soon-to-be wedge. The motion underneath the wall cloud was unlike anything I had ever seen with the whites of my eyes. Then it was go time. Wedge o'clock. Wedge o'clock. The wedge is coming. The storm planted its first mega wedge to my north, obviously 45 miles in diameter. After that wedge vanished, yet another wedge spun up to its south. This wedge appeared to be even bigger, with an estimated 69-mile wide radius based off of visual accuracy. After it dissipated, a brief weak tornado touchdown. It wasn't that big. June came in hot, just like a lion. 3 tornado events, all happening in a row. 16th, 17th, and the 21st. 16th, beautiful time lapse that I've caught. Beautiful wedge just tearing up the countryside. 17th, another moderate risk, this time for the Effingham, Central Illinois area. One of the craziest structures I have ever seen on a supercell. It was mean, it was green, just like this screen. The chase started near Mattoon, Illinois, as I sit waiting for the wedges promised by the wedge gods. The first supercell began to show its wedgy face, all while it continuously threw mega wedge lightning bolts at me. The structure on these storms were mad bussin', as extreme amounts of wind shear sculpted the updrafts like a sculptor sculpting a sculpture artistically. You can see at the bottom of the updraft here, our first wedge of the day, absolutely destroying the countryside. I followed the storm for a while, but it eventually outran the juicy wedge-primed atmosphere to the east. I decided to double back to the west, where the king of all wedge-bearing supercells resided. Oh my gosh. The structure, the color, the wedginess. A likely definitive wedge is buried in the deep greenish core here, as the storms continued to throw Zeus javelins at me. Amazing, definitive, and extreme. Then, after it all simmered down for a few days, the 21st came around. What happened on the 21st, you say, Nathan? What? Did you guess wedges? Correct. An MCV swirling over southern Illinois provided ample wind shear and forcing for yet another wedge-filled outbreak. I began to notice a cluster of rain and storms beginning to slowly form just on the eastern flank of the MCV's eye. So, what did I do? I started driving towards Olney, Illinois. I found a wedge-watching field just outside of Louisville, Illinois, and set my eyeballs on the base of the storm. The storm wasted no time producing a mega wedge just a few minutes after I looked at it. A very evident and definitive clear slot can be seen here wrapping around the wedge on the horizon. Now let me tell you guys, when I say the size of this wedge on the horizon, just west of my position here, unmistakably a wedge. So what did I do? I got closer. Duh. The closer I got, the more crazy it looked. And when I parked for a second time to get out and look again, boy howdy, the wedge was already on the ground again, tearing through the Illinois fields. You can see the rain-filled RFD wrapping around the wedge here. Notice the elusive but incredibly rare horizontal rain wedge vortex here, which are a phenomena only reserved for the most extreme wedges of them all. I likely will never witness this powerful of a wedge in my life ever again, as I live until I die. I likely will never witness this powerful of a wedge in my life ever again, as long as I live until I die. Permanently. The fun was far from over though. I decided to get even closer to the baby wedge, so I blasted north. I pulled off again off of the road to reassess my situation, only to notice that the baby wedge had taken a devious right turn because the RFD pushed it to the east and it was headed right for me. I had to blast south immediately or face almost certain doom. The storm finally moved off to my east, and it decided to fart out one last wedge. Notice the crazy motion above the trees in the video as the storm pinches off its last loaf here. This wedge was probably 598 miles wide, as it had the same visual distortions as the Chauncey, Illinois wedge, making it seem much smaller and less violent than it actually was. So there you have it, folks. Another year filled with wild, wacky wedges. With how extreme this year has been, it was once again time to review my footage and my brain to count up the total amount of wedges, plus this year's wedges, divide it by pi r squared to get the circumference of the wedges, find x, and round it all up to the nearest million. This complicated mathematical equation gives us a complete and total wedge count of 65,343 wedges thus far. These wedges are getting a little out of hand. And as always, stay wedgy, my friends.